Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today. Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio, radio, no pictures live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you're riding on the train or driving your car to work or something like that. In this essay, I'd like to talk about how class warfare of the trade unions of yesteryear, how it morphed into the race, gender, LGBTQ type hustling that we see today. It's the same sort of architecture of grievance. It's just being morphed into something else. Now, certainly as a kid, I remember the trade unions were very active. I remember there was a lot of strikes, and I never quite, say as a kid at school, I never quite understood why these strikes took place. It seemed odd to me because certainly as I read the newspapers back in the day, this is obviously pre-internet and everything, but as I read the newspapers, it seemed unclear as to why the strike was taking place. It didn't seem to gel with me. Well, isn't it, there needs to be a genuine grievance, surely, but it seemed to be more explosive ideology rather than actual grievances. Now, later on, when I'm doing business studies and so on, I get an opportunity to go to a trade union meeting that promises to be pretty rowdy. So I know someone who knows someone. So I got an invite, just as a fly on the wall thing. Sit at the back there and shut up and don't say anything. And so I did. So I went along to look at this, not necessarily knowing what I was going to see, but there are a few takeaways. And what sort of brought this to the fore again was I was cleaning up some stuff. I was getting some papers out of storage, and actually was burning them in the incinerator down the back of the backyard here. And I came across this. Oh, I remember that, and I'd forgotten all about it actually. So I thought this is good content for a video. So there's, I don't know how many, there was 100 plus sort of trade union workers there, pretty rough and ready sort of dudes, working class type people, and they were discussing the benefits that they thought they were entitled, and they were threatening strike action if they didn't get the benefits. The best, I made notes at the time because it was part of an essay I was going to do, but they didn't appear to have a grievance that could be articulated. Their grievance was sort of a miasma thing of, we're the workers and we're being oppressed by the owners of capital, the bourgeois, the bourgeoisie, as it were. So we're being oppressed. So that was the sort of prejudicial beginning point. We're being oppressed by them, and they're getting rich off the work we do. And so we're entitled to more. Why are we entitled to more? Well, we don't know. We're oppressed, and therefore we should get more because we're oppressed, because we're an oppressed class of people. And now, none of these people had read Marx or even would have understood it if they had. I don't think. There certainly were no geniuses in the crowd that were I made notes on, and just remembering going back to my memory of that plus these notes. So they actually had no grievance. Now this surprised me when I was in the room watching this, because if you're threatening strike action, this sort of thing, shouldn't you have a genuine grievance? Well, this is, we are aggrieved because of this or that reason, or these reasons plural. But that wasn't the case here. They came in, we're pre-aggrieved because we're the oppressed class. You guys are getting rich off our work, and we just want a bigger piece of the pie. How big's the pie? Well, we don't know, but it doesn't really matter because we're the oppressed ones. So we are therefore entitled to extra. And so there was no grievance, and this surprised me. You're threatening something like strike action, and you've got no grievance. Now, had they had a grievance, I would have probably been on their side, I guess, to some extent. Particularly given this was in the, given my youth at the time. I don't know, I was like 19 or something. Given my youth at the time, I would have seen I would have perceived, I still had sort of quite not Marxist, I had quite socialist, compared to now at least, socialist views of the world, that people should have certain rights and entitlements, and perceived there was an oppressed class or classes of people. Anyway, so I'm listening to all this, and they were saying that they would work, say their shift was, I don't know, 8 hours, whatever it is. And so what were their demands? That they're aggrieved, they're in there, they're behaving like aggrieved people, they're behaving like people who are downtrodden by the evil bosses and the bourgeoisie and so on. So they want to have, they want their shift to finish 15 minutes earlier for wash-up time, they call it. So when the shift ends, they've got wash-up facilities there, but they don't want to have to wash up in their own time. They're saying, well, the company should pay us for that, so we should be able to finish 15 minutes early and finish the shift 15 minutes early and get wash-up time, and then fine, that's it. They also said that they were getting their meal break wasn't long enough. It was, I don't know, half an hour, I think it was. They wanted 45 minutes. They also said that they wanted staff canteen, an employee canteen, food canteen, where they would be fed good quality meals and they wouldn't have to pay for it. So these were their sort of demands, but none of them were based on any grievance. Now they talked about, and various people got up and talked about it. And, well, why should we have to bring sandwiches to work, or why should we have to bring food? Why can't they provide it? They're rich, they've got plenty of money. Why can't they pay for it? We demand a canteen with good quality food. We don't want slop. We want good quality food, and it has to be nutritious and da da da. So, and if they want us to work harder, they should give us better, feed us and give us better, and on it went. The wash-up time, and they wanted to have stop work meetings, union meetings, stop work meetings any time, and be paid for it, because the way it was working at the time, I think if they had a stop work meeting, the companies stopped paying them for that time. So I was listening to all this, and I was waiting. I was thinking, well, there must be, they're about to come out with what they're upset about, why they're aggrieved and why they're entitled to this, but they actually didn't. So they were demanding these things purely on the basis, hey, we're the victims, you're the oppressor, you should pay us, you should compensate us. And they were talking a bit like the feminists do today, of saying, we haven't forgotten the miners. This wasn't mining, by the way. We haven't forgotten the miners in 100 years ago that were dying in the mines, and we haven't forgotten their struggle, and we're not going to give up the struggle today. And I remember thinking, and I even made notes on this, what's what you're talking about today got to do with the fucking mines from 100 years ago? It doesn't. And you look at the feminist arguments today, men have been oppressing women for centuries, and it's only white people have been oppressing colonialism. But it's exactly the same arguments, just refashioned around race and gender. So these were the arguments that they were putting forward, and they were going to go on strike if they didn't get these things. No, I didn't think, even as a kid, I thought, well, none of this has merit. There is no grievance here. You're just demanding more, because reasons, because you can't even achieve. So I tried to engage some of the people there, because I thought, well, maybe I've missed something here. Maybe there is a grievance and I just haven't spotted it. But it wasn't. They just, hey, we're entitled to more because we're the oppressed ones, and now, looking at it, and I made notes on this, these people had no grievance. They were being paid about 110% of the average wage, and they were workers. They'd all left high school at age 14, and so it's not like they were well educated or they had particular gifts or skills, although some of them would have been sort of, I don't know, machine operators of some description, fitters and turners and so on. So they've had, if you like, some sort of apprenticeship or training period. So it wasn't like they were completely unskilled. It wasn't like, they weren't all floor sweepers or something. So, but they were being paid 110% of the average wage. And there were also other facilities that were there that I thought were, really it was the company giving out largesse. It wasn't a high profit sector of the economy, so it wasn't like the bosses, if you like, are swimming in money. But the workers would say, well, have you seen the fancy car that the boss drives? And, well, what's that going to do with your working conditions? Why is that a basis for? So there was a lot of the politics of envy but just this ideological view that we're oppressed, we're entitled to more, we should get more. How do we know that we're not being oppressed? Well, if we demand more and get it, then we know we're not being. So there was a almost a childlike, encouraged by the trade union hustlers, by the way, but there was a childlike view of things, that it was that they wanted a class warfare attitude, because then that ideologically justified some of the demands they were making. Some of the demands they got, some they didn't. I didn't think, just looking at it, the management were really handling it very well. In some cases, both sides were looking for tactical, strategic advantage in strikes, waiting for the other side to drop the ball or make some sort of oversight or error or make an intemperate remark, and then that could be seized upon to try. And there was also a public opinion type thing of the company wanting to look like they were the victims and the union wanting to look like they were the victims. So there was a lot of sort of disingenuous circling around each other and talking past each other, and tactical leaks to the media, and all this sort of stuff going on. I thought it was. I thought the strikes were, certainly the ones that I was aware of, were quite unnecessary, as indeed this one was. So they went on strike. I don't know how much they ended up getting of their demands, but I didn't think any of their demands were necessary or reasonable or even represented an aggrieved position that they were trying to address. But particularly, and this brought it home again, just looking at my notes there, the race, gender hustling, LGBT, we've been oppressed and we're entitled to this, and outcomes should be equal. This was something that these workers were arguing. Well, the profit, the proportion of the company's profit that went to workers versus management or capital, there should be equity in these outcomes, and you can see how neatly this has just been pirouetted straight into race, gender hustling. And straight out of, and really the idea, I guess there was a sudden sort of shift, I guess, in the mid 1980s, and certainly going to the early 1990s, that 5-6 year period there, where the trade union version of class warfare and class enemies and everything, in that 5 or 6 years, almost completely changed. Not almost, it did. Pretty much completely changed into the race, gender hustling and so on that we see today. And we look at really, there was a concerted effort all across the Western world to erode and destroy the power of trade unions. There was only, and all across the Western world, there's only one union they didn't try and destroy, just one, and that was the education unions, whether it be in America, Britain, Australia, or elsewhere. Only the education unions were left untouched. Only they not only kept but increased their power, and were given almost complete control of education curriculum and so on. Interesting that and it can't be an accident that only that union all across the Western world survived, given how much the globalists rely on the education system to push globalist propaganda today. It can't be an accident. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.